the players the 49ers have traded up for. Hold on, let me get the list real quick because there's 7, and 6 of them are on offense. These are players the Niners have traded up for since 2017, which is Shanahan's first year. So these players are Reuben Foster, C.J. Beathard, Joe Williams, Dante Pettis, Brandon Aiyuk, Trey Sermon, and Trey Lance. And what I've noticed is these are players that Kyle Shanahan has kind of soured on quickly. Like Foster, they waived. Beathard, they buried him on the depth chart for years behind Nick Mullins, and then they didn't re-sign him. Joe Williams got waived. Pettis got waived. Aiyuk is now, Shanahan has said on the record that he's inconsistent. Sermon was inactive last week, and Lance is not ready. I have a theory as to why this is, because to me it's bizarre. This is your team, Kyle. John Lynch has already said you have final say on the offensive picks. These are all offensive players except for Foster that you traded up for. How can you change your mind so quickly? And my theory is this, that while he liked these guys, it was probably John Lynch's decision to trade up for him. And Kyle's the kind of guy who could be like, well, I didn't tell you to trade up for him. And he can say, well, I don't want people to think that I'm giving them preferential treatment because I traded up for him. So I'm going to be even tougher on him. And I want to prove the point to John Lynch that he was wrong to move up. Maybe Kyle Shanahan's more old school and likes to trade down. I don't know. But it seems to me that when a coach kind of sabotages or is very hard on a player, puts him in the doghouse quickly, it's usually like, I didn't want this guy. But Kyle can't say that because he picks the offensive players. All he can say is, well, I didn't say trade up for him. And from what I heard, he used that excuse with C.J. Beathard. He's like, well, yes, I did like C.J., but I never told John to trade up for him. I'm just saying. So there could be some of that going on. What do you think?
Well, there's one thing for certain. Kyle Shanahan, he definitely puts what we think are great picks, people that the 49ers are high on, in the doghouse rather quickly. And I don't like that. I'm sorry, but Aiyuk, yes.
Sermon? Aiyuk? What is going on?
Well, Sermon makes even perhaps less sense. Never gets a chance, doghouse. And yet he has the dimensions of a bruiser running back. He's fast, he's maneuverable, he can catch. Like this guy, he's a blocker. He'll do anything you ask him to do. He's a humble football player, it seems like.
You trade for Trey Lance and you just decide, but he's not ready. I don't even want to give a competition. He's not ready. I mean, wow.
Aiyuk also disturbs me because, like, I know what he can do. We know what he can do. We know what his yak can be. What? This doesn't make sense. Now, Kyle Shanahan said it was that he's not in the doghouse, but you don't believe that, do you?
No. He played 26 snaps and got 0 targets. That felt like punishment. You're going to go clear out routes for Deebo Samuel. How you like that? And if you do a good job with that, maybe I'll give you a target next week. No. This feels very like tough love.
If that's true, that's absolutely childish and it's bad leadership because, I mean, there's no points. Yeah, Pettis, we've always said whether Pettis was into it or not, it's just the way he was handled so publicly and everything like that. And the way that Kyle Shanahan, he'll look at the camera and he'll be like you said, he'll look at the camera and he'll say things like, well, we'll see how he's progressing.
Yeah, I mean, if he said today about Brandon
Aiyuk, it's on his shoulders.
Time, he needs to be a lot better than the guy behind him. Like, he was taking subliminal shots at Aiyuk left and right today. Dude, you traded up for him. That is so weird.
Aiyuk is a good player. I mean, I would love to hear from some of the people watching the show what they think, but he's a good player. He needs to be played. And we cannot make ourselves one-dimensional. Darius Slay will get the Deebo Samuel assignment, for instance. So other people will have to step up. I think Trent Sherfield can. I like Trent Sherfield. Maybe like a modern J.J. Stokes or something like that. But at the same point, Aiyuk is deadly with the ball in his hands. We all remember what he did to the Eagles last year. Jumped over him. It was great. That's Brandon Aiyuk. He needs to be played. So do I think it's possible that this is a recurring theme with Kyle? Yeah, I think it's possible. I think it goes to show who has the power. If it is possible, then I find it more hard to believe that he is not the mastermind behind that race. And here's why. If he is such a draconian autocrat, why would he relinquish his power there as well? Typically, when this
he'll complain about it after the fact. Well, I told you I was right. I told you were wrong, John. Okay, well then why don't you overrule me? Why don't you take responsibility? Why don't you take control? Well, you're the GM and you wanted to see. To me, this is a guy who was unwilling to put his neck out there, but now he's placing blame. And it seems to me that no matter how close a GM and a coach may be at first, if they're in a must-win season and things go south, invariably both of them will try to position themselves as safer and try to position the problems as the other person's fault. Like before the season, Steve Keim, the GM down in Arizona, said on the record, like, yeah, the expectation is to make the playoffs this year and go far, which is basically saying team is good. This is all on Cliff Kingsbury. If we don't make it, it's on the coach. Don't blame me. I think Gruden was doing similar stuff with Mayock, and they're supposed to be super tight. So I think what is happening here is they know they're in a must-win season, and they're probably going to make the playoffs. But if they don't, and someone needs to be held accountable, or
John Lynch,
it's going to be John. And that's
I
what
don't like that.
It's
Actually,
like, hey man, Trey Lance, that wasn't my call. Like, Trey Sermon, I never said trade up for Trey Sermon. There are ways subtly that you can put someone else's ass on the line, essentially. You love that about.
So that's not so much of a conspiracy as it is a little bit of a CYA game, I guess you could say. So that's more like what you say. You see that in the NFL where it's where it's
in the NFL,
you're playing for your future. You're playing for your contract next year or to get your contract renewed or something like that.
No one ever takes accountability in the NFL. It's always, well, he wanted to do that. I tried to tell him. Everything I said was right, but only two of the things that I wanted to do were listened to. And that's why I deserve more power. That's why this guy's in the way. I'm just saying that's how the NFL always works. It's whoever can push blame best stays the longest.
Well, let me ask you about the Sermon thing. Was Kyle Shanahan wrong?
I don't know. I mean,
Mitchell had a heck of a game. I feel like he played well.
I thought he looked good in the preseason. Yeah, I don't understand. And like he said, you can only have 3 running backs active for a game. Who made that rule? What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's weird.
So because it's like Mostert gets hurt on the second play, and now you're down to 2 running backs. That's not good. There's no rule about only having anyway. That's weird.
Yeah, it's definitely strange. I like I said, Aiyuk and Sermon greatly concern me. Lance not so much because I think he is stuck with Trey Lance whether he wants it or not.
And I think there is something about Kyle that he likes tough love. Maybe that's what his dad gave him. Maybe that's the only type of coaching he knows. He did work for John.
Actually,
Gruden.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
Because I listen. Shannon Sharp is one of my favorite football players. I listen to him and Skip Bayless all the time. Mm-hmm. Besides your show and that one, those are the 2 I always listen to. So he has a lot of insight into. He doesn't call it Mike and Kyle Shanahan. He just calls it Shanahan because Sharp is always insinuating that the San Francisco 49ers are coached by both Mike and Kyle Shanahan.
He's right.
And he made the point when he was playing, he's like they're birds of a feather. They are the same kind of coaches, that very old school style. Yeah. Like early 90s, mid 90s style kind of football and everything. So it's definitely he believes in tough love, but he's a little different than his father. His father was to me a little bit less, I don't want to use an inflammatory word, but it just seems like Kyle messes with his guys a little bit more.
I see what you're saying.
Like it's a little bit more on a personal level.
Antagonistic.
Yeah. But okay, so antagonism in a lot of bad leaders' books or lower ranking leaders, managers in particular, is a mode of motivation.
Yeah.
They think if I punk you a little bit, if I push you, you're going to shove back.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with the emotional head game of making comments about your wide receivers. To be honest with you, what I would like to see, which the press does not want to see, is more the Kyle Shanahan where he messes with the press, not his guys. I'd rather see that. And the reason I say that
was Harbaugh. Yeah.
Right, where he might make some jokes and things. And like if tomorrow you ask him, hey, what's with Aiyuk? I don't know, what's with Aiyuk? Looks good to me.
Exactly. That's what
I
Jim
would
Harbaugh
love
would
to
say.
see that. That's what he needs to do.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he bites on questions sometimes. You can get him.
He bites like defensive players bite on play action. Teron Lewis says, on some plays, I'd like to see Ward at cornerback and Josh Norman at free safety, where I feel he'd be most effective, in my opinion.
I think Teron, perhaps you are thinking of like Richard Sherman should have moved to safety. Maybe that's your thinking. Kind of slowed down, but they have the smarts to read the zone well. I don't know if Norman is prepared to make a move like that in his career, but
that's the kind of thing you need to do all off season, I would think. Right,
and to be honest with you, if some weird thing happened where Richard Sherman came back to this team, Grant, do you think he'd be better at safety or corner?
Again, I think he would need to have spent the entire offseason working.
He has some reps at safety, but not enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Eric Davis came on the show and said, look, I played with Merton Hanks. I know Merton Hanks. Richard Sherman could do what Merton Hanks did. I was sold.
That's exactly what I think. Absolutely.
But I still think he needs a full offseason practicing. I mean, who can just step into a new position at 34 and knock it out? I think that's a lot. That's asking a lot.
It is asking a lot. There are nuances to safety and things like that. And of course, that would be bumping Ward or something like that back out of his natural position. So it's like, would it weaken us at one level to strengthen us at another?
Also, we don't know if Richard Sherman's into it. We don't know.
The way I read it is it seems like Richard Sherman, I read one article that says he is open to it. But we have the 5 misdemeanors to worry about. But for the most part, it doesn't seem like the NFL is going to get involved. Have you read these articles? And that he was open to a mid-season return?
Great. Well,
which actually is better. There's no way he's stretched out enough and in football shape right now.
Well, if he can get his stuff together, that he might be a nice little addition for the Niners mid-season, because I still think if he's got, I don't want to use stupid cliches, but if he's mentally and physically good to go,
no, it's okay. Yeah,
he's better than Josh Norman.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's a master of the zone, which we're not going to be playing right man coverage in the near future with Jason Verrett out.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's going to be a zone. We need zone defenders.